Well, welcome everyone to this amazing call on what if it's not about you, or nothing is ever about you, or whatever words you'd like to use, narcissism and beyond. And this is a call that has been quite a long time in creation. It was all this accumulation of ideas, of research, of experience, and all of a sudden it started to formulate into something that needed to get out into the world. And I wasn't exactly sure how it was going to get out into the world. I just knew that it was going to get out into the world. And we hit many roadblocks in the process of trying to get it out into the world. And we were determined. When I say we, I mean my beautiful team, Mary Case Energetics. We were determined to get this out into the world, this information. So the first thing I would like to do is just say welcome. And for those of you who don't know me, my name is Mary Case of Mary Case Energetics. And I am not a social worker. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not a psychotherapist. I am a lover of life with a tremendous amount of life experience. Life experience includes 38 amazing years as a classroom music teacher, grades 5 to 8, and more than 40 years of being married to my wonderful husband and raising children, and just a general fascination with human dynamics, personalities, how the mind works, how we show up in the world, a study of emotional intelligence, a little bit of study in university in psychology, and then a whole lot of study in general of just watching in my 64 years of life, watching how people engage with each other, how they engage in relationships, in the workplace, and a fascination with all of that. So that's really what led me to this moment, looking at life experiencing and also looking at how it's showing up for other people. And what I was seeing was there were a lot of people who came to me for a little bit of life coaching who were really suffering. And part of that suffering was they were at the effect of what I'm going to call for now narcissistic behavior. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about like what is narcissism, how does it show up, we're going to talk about healthy narcissism versus grandiose narcissism, a couple different types. We're going to talk about how it affects our bodies, how it affects our ability to function in the world. We're going to look at all of that. But the first thing I wanted to say is to all of you, no doubt landing on this page, landing on this call, you've had some experience with being in the presence of a narcissist, of the energy of a narcissist, and that can be really cruel on bodies. They can be really intense, very unkind, very harsh, sometimes debilitating. So I just want to say that I'm sorry that you have gone through that. And I'm grateful that you're at a point in your life where you're willing to look at, is there actually a different possibility? What can I do with these energies? What choices are available to me? Is it possible to find ease with this? And I don't mean easy. When you're dealing with these energies, it doesn't mean that it's easy. And if that word energy is new to you, really, I was just saying when you're dealing with these traits, okay, every time we engage with someone, there is an energy exchange. So when I talk about energy, that's what I'm talking about. So when you are dealing with narcissistic energies, some choices will present themselves. And we're going to look a little bit at what those choices might be and how you could change an energy or find more ease. And just a reminder that this particular call is being recorded, which is why you're muted. It's recorded so that it's going to be available to others in the future. And at the end, probably in about 20 minutes from now, we will stop the recording and then I will have time questions and answers, or actually questions and ideas, not necessarily answers, but questions and ideas. Beautiful. So narcissism, it was interesting when I said, okay, I'm going to look this up and see what the actual definition is. So if you go to Wikipedia, it says self-centered personality style characterized by a preoccupation with one's self and one's own needs, often at the expense of others. And the word narcissism actually came from the Greek mythological figure, Narcissus. That was the Greek mythological figure that was always looking at the reflection, his or her own reflection in the water. So it was a deeply distorted sense of self. And when I actually looked for a little AI support on this topic, and I put in like, what is narcissism? I was curious what definition would show up. It was characterized by an excessive sense of self-importance, a need for admiration, and a lack of empathy for others. So one of the key points there is this lack of empathy. So sometimes we go and we get this idea like, how could someone be that way? How can they be so unkind to me? Don't they get it? Like, don't they get what I'm feeling? And that can be really intense and confusing. So you get confused by the energy of the narcissist. So what we realized here, and it's embedded into this definition, is it's never about you. It's always, 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 always about the narcissist. And the fact that they may not or do not have that capacity for what we call empathy, which is the caring, the understanding. Now, having said that, and in this call, you're going to notice sometimes I flip things a little bit, and this is where I sometimes look or present things a little differently from traditional psychology. Having said that, I have seen that the narcissist may not be capable of empathy, but they are able to play the role of being empathetic, if that makes sense. So with a narcissist, it's always about image and how they want to be viewed in the world, and they want to be thought to be amazing. They want to be admired. And sometimes one of the way that shows up is that, oh, they're going to think I'm really great because I'm kind, or because I'm a philanthropist, or because I give all this money to a charity, or because I do this certain action, because I take care of my mother-in-law, like whatever it might be. Sometimes it looks like empathy, but it's not really empathy. It's part of this climbing to social status, or this desire to be admired. So there's empathy, and then there's being empathetic, and then there's playing the role of empathy or empathetic, if that makes sense to you. So types of narcissism. There's one type which is labeled as grandiosity, which is a really inflated sense of self. Everything is exaggerated. Everything is inflated. They appear outwardly confident, present themselves like perhaps as like edgy, arrogant, maybe have a sense of entitlement. You know that it's all about them. That's like a grandiose narcissism. And then we have a more covert narcissism, which is where it's actually called in the psychology world vulnerable narcissism. So very often behind the facade of the narcissist is this very sense of fragility. There's a lot of fragility there. There is not confidence. There is low self-esteem. They're actually very vulnerable and on edge all the time. And that's the vulnerable narcissist. With the vulnerable narcissist, sometimes you'll notice that they're very passive aggressive. Okay, so it's not always like this explosive anger, which you sometimes see with narcissism. It's more like a passive aggressive saying something, but meaning something different. It can be very, very interesting energy and very subtle. And we do have what we call healthy narcissism, okay? We are all narcissists. We all have narcissistic tendencies. We all have this part of us that makes it all about us. I mean, when you came into the world, when you were a baby, you were exploring your hands for the first time at a certain age. It was all about you and your body. And as you go through life, there's times when you require that level of healthy narcissism. It's not always bad. The great artists in the world, I see it a lot in my world of music. Okay, I have a degree in performance on violin, and it requires a healthy narcissism to get up on stage and conduct an orchestra. You have to present yourself with that confidence, that healthy self-confidence. And it's sometimes just on the edge of not being healthy, or it shows up off stage as not healthy. So it's very subtle sometimes, the difference between when narcissism is healthy and when it's destructive. But I really wanted to point out here that narcissism is not always bad. Okay, you're not always a victim. Narcissism is not always bad. The other thing I wanted to point out is there does exist something called narcissistic personality disorder, which is a diagnosis. What we're looking at today is more narcissistic tendencies or characteristics. People can have narcissistic characteristics. They can get narcissistic characteristics greatly out of balance and not necessarily have what the professionals would call narcissistic personality disorder. And the other way that narcissism can show up is what's called a depressed narcissism, where it's almost like a shutting down energy. That's the fourth one. And I apologize in advance if I'm looking at my notes. Good little school teacher that I am. I had to organize all this information that I was receiving from every direction and all the research that I did, and I had to kind of pull it all together. So the way that it works for me and my ADHD personality is to organize in notes. So you will notice that occasionally I look down from you. Narcissism is never about you. It's never about you. It's never about you. It's never about you. I can't say that enough times. This is a quote I came across. Narcissism isn't always a bad thing. At its core, it's about self-identity, confidence, and personal power. But when taken to extremes, whether through self-absorption, manipulation, emotional control, it can damage relationships, it can stifle growth, and it can really create cycles of hurt, cycles of hurt, cycles of pain. Yeah. So a little bit about kind of the history and the why behind narcissism. Like, where does this come from? Are you born with this behavior? Does this behavior develop? Can it be changed? These are the big questions that come up. So some of the information that I found went back to the fact that narcissistic behaviors can be related to childhood trauma or childhood experiences. It can be a genetic component. If we're looking at the mental health piece of it, sometimes it's connected to genetics and shows up through the generations. Sometimes it can be related to neglect in childhood. And sometimes it can be related to what I call the intensity of awareness. So some of you know that I work with neurodivergence, ADD, ADHD, OCD, autism spectrum, and beyond. And that's all of those that full spectrum is always about awareness and the intensity of awareness. So without getting into that, what I wanted to point out is sometimes the narcissist is so aware, is so sensitive that he or she at some point shuts down or internalizes or creates their own coping mechanisms. And the coping mechanisms that can be created can be the self-absorption, where the narcissist makes their whole world about them. It's never about you. It's never about you. It's never about you. So you see that here. It's about the narcissist being insecure and projecting on others. So blaming others. Okay, narcissists are never wrong, right? Perhaps you've known that. A narcissist will try to cover up their insecurities. They never want to show up as insecure. They will go through great lengths to make sure that their insecurities do not show up. Narcissists often have a deep fear and a dread of loneliness. They do not want to be left alone. They need to know that others admire them, appreciate them, adore them, whatever it is, however it shows up. And backtracking just a little bit, that can come from the insecurity as a child or teenagehood, whenever that might be, and the intensity of awareness. I don't know what to do with all of this awareness of the world and everything that's out there. So I'm going to create this shell around myself, the shell of narcissism, where I'm going to present myself as amazing. I'm going to ask people to adore me, to admire me, and I'm going to set everything up so that that's in place. And this is going to allow me to shut out pain, or often it shows up as trying to shut out pain. So from this, you'll notice that most narcissists cannot handle any kind of rejection. Okay, they will take rejection deeply personally, and they will flip it and make it all about the other person, make the other person wrong. Sometimes they hold a grudge and they never go back to a relationship with that person. All of this comes from that need to protect themselves, to always be right, keep a facade of strength about them, and to not let anybody know that they're insecure and that they have faults. And yet we all have faults, right? We all have faults. We all have narcissistic tendencies. We all have all of this. And that kind of leads into, can we change this narcissistic behavior? From what I could see through coaching and also through research, it can be changed once it's acknowledged. Okay, if the narcissist is not willing to acknowledge the tendencies, the characteristics, then it's very difficult to shift and change it. Or it's very difficult to direct those qualities so that it can be used productively. Again, it's not always wrong. What is the quality there beneath what we're calling narcissistic behaviors that can be directed in a different way? What would that look like? Now, having said all that, most of you on the call have or are experiencing relationships where the other party is labeled as narcissistic. You might even be looking at, like, am I a narcissist? Usually if you're asking if you're a narcissist, you're not, but you might be looking at that as a possibility. And you're going to see that our narcissists are master manipulators. They are brilliant with gaslighting. And when I say gaslighting, that's the capacity to turn something around, make it all about you and make you wrong, put you in a state of doubt. So the narcissist puts you in a state of doubt. You start to wonder, oh, I must be like a bad wife, a bad mother, a bad colleague. I'm doing something wrong. Otherwise, he or she would be behaving in a different way. That's gaslighting. Sometimes gaslighting comes from an intention to actually gaslight the person, but most often it is very subtle and subconscious. So it's not specifically created. That's gaslighting. Huh, I feel like I need to take a deep breath. Okay. I'm on page 5, guys. We're moving through these notes. Thank you for choosing this call, Narcissism and Beyond. It's never about you. I will repeat that 1,000 times. It's never about you. It's never about you. It's never about you. Even when it seems so unkind, so intense, even when you're being gaslit and it feels like it's about you. And even when you go into doubt, like, change this, how does this happen? What's wrong with me? All of that. It's never, ever about you. So, a few tools. Now that we got all that out of the way, and you have a sense, okay, like, what is this narcissism, healthy narcissism, grandiose, vulnerable, depressed? What is all of that? It's like, okay, now I'm starting to get that. Now, what do I do? What do I do with this codependency I have with this narcissistic partner or with the person that I work with? How do I cope with that? What do I do? Can it be changed? So we start to look at that. So that's a tough one. You may feel like you're walking on eggshells all the time. When you feel like you're walking on eggshells, like every day is like, if I don't say this, if I don't do that, it's going to be okay. And oh, it's a good day because this person didn't explode. Like whatever that is, that's the presence of narcissism or borderline personality disorder. Could be other things as well, but it often starts as narcissism. Narcissists cannot do conflict resolution. They will get in a power struggle. They will get angry. They will fight. They will blame. They will make you wrong. And they don't have the capacity for healthy conflict resolution. Their conflict resolution will look very, very different. And you will notice that conversations with a narcissist always get turned around. Even when you're having like a good little conversation, like everything's fine, you're not walking on eggshells, and it's a good day, you're having a conversation. But what you'll notice, and even with what we're calling healthy narcissism, there's always like this switch where no matter what you say, it goes into the world of like what's happening with a narcissist, right? They always flip the switch into their world, into their world. I see that a lot in the world of music. Trying to have a composition with like a conductor or a professional player or something, they are in the middle of healthy narcissism, perhaps. And you can see it so clearly, though, if you try to have a conversation with them, it will continually go back to their experiences, their concerts, their programs, and you'll rarely get the kind of engagement like, and how are you doing? You'll never get like, how are you feeling? Okay, that's not in the vocabulary of the narcissist. So, what's your strategy? Stop looking for that. Know that it can't be delivered. So stop looking for it. And can you find a sense of peace knowing that that person will never deliver what you're looking for? So, what's it going to take to create your life? What's it going to take to create a sense of peace for you? What do you love? What are you passionate about? And when you are engaging with someone who is narcissistic, watch your own personal dialogue, head dialogue, that is, like what's going on in your head, and know that you are worthy. Like if something's going on where you're into self-doubt or you're not feeling worthy of who you are. You're not willing to recognize how amazing you are. Notice that and flip it. That's not true. That's the projections of the energies of the narcissist. So one of the strategies is to start to notice the inner dialogue, what's going on in your own head, and what's it going to take to change that to a deeper sense of self-worth. The other thing is related to boundaries. What boundaries are required? What are your boundaries? What works for you? Are they physical boundaries? Do you require to leave a relationship? Do you require to have your own hobbies? It's like, I'm going to the gym, see you later, that you're not engaging or you're engaging part of the time. What are your boundaries? This is not about being a doormat. This is about being very clear in what your boundaries are. Like, no, that's not okay. You've crossed that boundary. And one of the strategies that the psychologists will tell you is to use those I statements. Like, when this is showing up in this way, I feel, or I am, or I cannot do my work. Like, whatever that is, flipping it to an I statement. Because a narcissist can never receive if you're making about them, right? You are this and you are that and you're doing this. That cannot be received. So it's really like acknowledging that someone has perhaps, you might even say it's a mental illness, right? And their brain is not programmed the way you think it should be, or the way you think a normal person should respond. It's like this person is actually not capable of responding in that way at that particular time. Cool. So healthy boundaries, creating a physical distance if required, getting professional support if required, counseling, whatever that might look like, noticing your mind chatter, not engaging with a narcissist. You're not going to get anywhere, right? When you try to engage with the narcissist, if they're angry or if you're in conflict, it's not going to get anywhere. They're always going to be waiting to win. They're going to be trying to win. Okay. Sometimes like a little, I think it's called like emotional detachment, dissociation. It's like, this is not healthy for me. I'm not going there. Okay, I'm going to just detach from this energy, from this person, whatever it might be. I'm not going to engage with this person. Maybe I'm not going to be in relationship with this person, whatever that is. And then know when it's time to either step in or step back. So building your own confidence to know that you're the one in control, not that other person, the narcissist, who's trying desperately to be in control. They'll never be in control. They'll be seeking control forever, but they'll never be in control. So what's it going to look like for you to take control of your life? What does your self-care program look like? What is nourishing for you? And then focus on what works for you and drop any expectations you have about how the other person can or will behave. And the last section is like, what now? So after this call in your email, you will get a 7-day reflective journal with little video prompts that you can work through. And that focuses entirely on you. Okay, we talked a lot about like, what is narcissism? What is narcissistic behavior? Okay, the journal is really about you and how you can shift and change what's going on for you in your life and find some sense of peace and ease. The other possibilities for the future is what support groups are out there, what's available to you, group coaching, online coaching, coaching with Mary Case Energetics, listen to the recording, listen to it a few times, like what is going to work for you, consult a professional, There's lots of professionals here that work with these particular syndromes, energies. There's some great YouTube videos out there. I watched and listened to many, 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 many of them. Dr. Carter was one that really stood out for me. And there was a great podcast. It was the Diary of the CEO, was talking with what was the name? Robert Greene. And I loved his perspective on narcissism because he was really looking at not necessarily the wrongness. There were narcissistic qualities which were immensely distorted and causing a lot of destruction. And then narcissistic qualities and personalities that were really out there in the world and were creating greater. So he really looks at all of those energies. And with all of that, there's no judgment. It's like, and what if we could drop all judgment? Like, this isn't right. This isn't wrong. This isn't good. This isn't bad. These are energies that are present in our lives. And what do we choose to do with them? And how can we create more ease? And please remember that it is never, ever about you. Beautiful. And thank you. Andrea is recording this. We're going to now stop the recording and open up for questions.